don't see it very well. And so I was testing their vision, and I noticed that I could see funny patterns on the screens that I made for Octopus. And those patterns were because of the macular pigments in my eye were letting me see a shadow on my retina of the macular pigments in my own eye. And I didn't know that at first. I just was like, well, there's a strange phenomenon. I started asking all my colleagues at the university, can you see these weird patterns? And some of them could see them really well. Some of them couldn't see them so well, but that's interesting. There's variation across the human population. And so over the period of about 4 or 5 years, started developing the theory behind this, understanding it. And then about almost exactly 8 years ago, I started a company to sort of take the crazy technology that I developed on Octopus and Cuttlefish and turn it into a real product, something that could help people. So I spun a company out of the university, built it up, we did all the clinical testing, we designed the device, we designed it for manufacture, and then we started testing it with optometrists in London and seeing whether it would work, whether it worked for patients. And we spent the last 8 years constantly improving, trying to make a product that works and does the job of measuring some of the macular pigments. You guys measure macular pigments here already with a different device. How many of you have had your macular pigments measured? Oh, good number of you. Fantastic. That's great. How many of you have used the machine to measure macular pigments? So, a couple of you. Okay. All right. That's great. Good to know. We will get into some details about macular pigments, but that's not the main focus of today. So I'm here if you want to ask questions about macular pigments. I'm happy to answer questions. That's one of the things I study lots of. Blue light is another area that I study a lot of in this space. But the bulk of today is really about getting to know this new machine, understanding how it works, why it works, how to make it work for the patient so that they get the right score, and how to make it work for the practice so that you guys can get the right products on the people that need them. That's really where we're going to go. Any questions about me and my background?
Everybody knows what a cuttlefish is?
If you haven't seen one, sometimes you walk in the beach and see cuttle bones, those little round cuttle bones. That's the only bone they have in their body other than their mouth parts. But they're like a swimming octopus that swims around. And then there's squid as well. Another part of that.
Cuttlefish are basically impossible to keep in captivity, I think.
They're pretty hard, yeah. I've done it. I've kept them for quite a while.
Really?
Octopus and cuttlefish. Cuttlefish prefer to move around a lot, so they need a bigger tank. Octopus are escape artists. They're really hard to keep. I kept some for quite a while, and they would get out of their tank at night and go and eat fish from another tank, then get back in their tank again. You're like, what the heck's going on? And you've been, where all the fish go? But they're masters. They can get through it like a tiny hole. I've kept about 20 different species, including blue rings, which you're not allowed to get them out because they're dangerous. But yeah, really fun animals to work with. Great. Well, I'm not going to get to remember all of your names today. Just so you know, I'm really bad with names. I apologize in advance. So I probably won't even do that. But I guess, maybe tell me who you are when you're asking me questions, whatever happens. So I can maybe try. Yeah. Great. Well, let's begin then. There's no questions. We'll start with a really brief introduction to what we're here to talk about today. I didn't get that to actually do it for students. Yeah. All right. So where are we going to go today? We're going to talk a really brief introduction to what this new device is. It's called the MPI. This is very lovely. The name doesn't really come from anywhere in particular other than macular pigments in the eye. This seems to work. We're going to talk about how to operate the MPI. That's really important. And then really how to give good advice to patients. That's the 3 things we really want to cover today. But along the way, if you have any questions, like I said, about blue light and macular pigments, if a good time comes up, just ask. Because that's where I can fill lots of interesting information. So what is it? That's what it looks like. It's MPI. It's a very fast and easy way to assess someone's macular pigments. You guys have been using, is it they call it the Quantify here, or is it the MPS2, or which one do you guys?
They just call it the MPod, but
the MPod,
it's the MPS2.
It's had lots of different names, that device. It's based on a technology called heterochromatic photometry. So flashing blue and green light. It's an amazing technology. It works very, very well to do what it does. However, in that particular device, the way they designed it, it measures only in the very, very middle of the macular pigments. And that's fine if you only want to know what the very, very middle of the macular pigments are, but actually macular pigments spread it over the whole macula. So we'd really like to know what all the macula looks like. And so the devices differ a little bit. And as you probably experienced with that device, it can be a little bit challenging for some people to do the test. It takes a little bit of time. And it's not great for kids. It's not great for much older people because then you don't know what you'll get in the score, but the number's not very accurate because the cataracts in the cornea start to interfere with the number. So there's a bunch of reasons why that technology is perfectly fine for what it does, but we think we've gone one step further. And we've done something that's a bit faster, a bit easier, gives you probably a more valuable number. That's where we're at. So what does it do? We've simplified it down, so it really is all about proactive prevention. In the past, we've often measured macular pigments in order to give older people sort of a good reason to take macular pigment supplements. That's often why we've done it. We want to supplement if they're low. But actually, there's a lot of other things you can do with that score, particularly among younger people. So what people don't often realize is that macular pigment deficiency or a low amount of macular pigments can happen to anybody. People often think, oh, young people, they're healthy, their eyes are in really good shape, everything's fine, they'll be okay. But actually, you only get your macular pigments from your food, which is why I brought a couple of foods today that are good sources of macular pigments. We've got goji berries and pistachios, but there's lots more. I'll talk about other foods later on today. So help yourself to those if you want to boost your macular pigments. But yeah, even kids. Young kids can have really low macular pigments because you only get it from your food. So if you're not eating the right foods, you're not going to be replacing them, you're not going to have any. So we've seen kids as young as 4 and 5 with very, very low macular pigments. So it's important to be measuring kids, partly because the benefit you get from macular pigments is about a lifelong protection. And so you need to be finding people when they're very young, giving them the information they need so they know what to do about that, either boosting their macular pigment levels or protecting their eyes in some other way. We'll talk about that later today as well. So it's about informing people with a new device to give them a number, a really simple number from 1 to 10 that tells them how high or low their macular pigments are. And then really what we want to then do is empower them. We want to educate them. What does this number mean? What are these macular pigments? What do they do? Why do I have them? What should I be doing to protect myself if they're low? And that's where the last part comes in, the protection. And that's where the dispensing side is really important. And there's lots of things people can do. Everything from improving their diet, maintaining healthy body weight, staying fit, not smoking for sure. And then some products like sunglasses, hats, photochromics, blue filtering lenses, all those things, supplements can all help. So there's lots of choices. And that's one thing I love about this is that it's not about saying, oh, you scored a 2, you need this pair of glasses, like this pair of sunglasses, this one particular thing. It's not about that. It's about giving people choice and letting them decide how do they want to protect themselves. There's lots of different options. And I think that patients really respond to that. They like it a lot better rather than you saying, oh, this means you have to do this. It's like, this is the score, this is what it means for your health, and here are some options. And let me tell you about why the different options offer you different benefits. And let them make the choice. And they will make the choice. They'll make a choice. And then they'll be happy with that. They'll feel satisfied that they've done that. You didn't tell them to do it. But your job is to educate them as to what that choice means and why you think it's the best choice. I think it's going backwards, probably my roller here. So there's three kind of roles in this process. We have the operator, the person who runs the test, and this can all be done by the same person, by the way. It's just 3 different roles in the process. We have the advisor. This is often the eye doctor, the optometrist, who will offer the sort of health side of the advice, but it doesn't have to be. And then finally, there's the dispenser, the person who's going to sort of lead them to the products and explain why the different products will offer them benefits. The test itself, the whole process takes about 3 to 5 minutes. The actual test is on average about 55 seconds. It's pretty quick. But you have to sit them down, tell them what to do the test, maybe talk to them a little bit afterwards. It does take a couple minutes. The advisor role, really it's 2 or 3 minutes of extra sort of talking around what the macular pigments mean, what does it mean for your health. And then for the dispensing role, it should be negligible because really you should already be talking about some of these products. So actually you're just now putting those products in the context of the score that they have. So that should help do that. But you might find that certainly at the beginning when you first implement this, that you are adding a little bit extra to each of those steps because you're getting used to how to get the wording right, perfecting that sort of the words you use to deliver that message. And we've developed, and I've got some with me today, a sort of a patient leaflet that can travel with the patient right through the whole journey. And you guys can either use what we've got or come up with your own. You can bespoke this one. But what it allows you to do is it allows you to put the score somewhere on the card. So you've got their score. You could write down, because you have a conversation with them when you make the measurement. So the device asks a series of questions around diet and lifestyle, whether they take supplements already, whether they wear sunglasses or photochromics regularly. And you can tick mark that right on there. So if the patient's then traveling to the eye care professional, the eye doctor, that they'll be able to see what you asked them and know what they said. So you can say here, you tick mark, yes, they eat a great diet, and yes, they're staying really fit. but that means they're probably not doing other things quite as well as they could do. And then the eye doctor will then make a recommendation and say, actually, you know what, this particular person, because of the questions I've asked, they probably really need some sunglasses. And, you know, they're outdoors fishing all the time, they're at the beach, and they don't have a good pair of sunglasses now. So I'm going to recommend that they have it. So when he gets to the dispenser can say, okay, we're going to offer all the different things, but I'm probably going to push a little bit harder on the sunglasses because that conversation's already been had. Now, it depends on where that conversation happens. You might have it as the dispenser, and the dispensers often should have good conversations around, okay, what do you need from your eyewear? What's your lifestyle like? What are you doing? Okay, let me help you find just the right thing. Because there's lots of different types of sunglasses, whether they need polarized or wraparounds and all those things. So you got, I'm telling you to suck eggs here. You guys already know this, but just putting in the context of the macular pigment score. Oh, it keeps jumping back, doesn't it? All right. And at the end of the day, what that means is that your patient is getting the best service. They're getting a product that is bespoke to them, that another measurement you're making here every day is driving the decision for them to pick just the right product, which means they're happier leaving. You're happy because you're selling products you already have to people that you know need them, which is exciting too. It makes you feel better about selling those things. And for the practice as a whole, the practice will do better too, because you'll probably end up selling more of those different products, which means the practice will be healthier financially, which is good for all of you as well. So everybody wins. Patient wins, practice wins, people that make the products win. Everyone wins. It's a great thing. And we know it works because we've worked with practices like yours where we've been able to collect data from matching up what the score was with what the patient did before they left the store. And we've looked and we see that people that score really low are much more likely to buy dietary supplements, blue filtering lenses, photochromics, or sunglasses. It doesn't mean that people that are high don't. Just in this particular 3-month period, it didn't happen to in this particular case. But we do see, if you expand the numbers, this is a very short time period, you'll see that all of those will grow to some degree. But definitely what we find is that this low score really encourages patients to think more about those things, and therefore they're much more likely to take them up. All right, any questions about that introductory part? And it could be anything. It doesn't have to be about that stuff, but happy to answer any questions there might be so far. Yeah.
You may have said this, but between 1 and 10, what's a healthy score and not healthy score?
That is really hard to answer that, actually. So what we typically say is if someone scores 4 or below, so less than 5, we give them stronger recommendations about protecting their eyes. And the reason I say it's really hard to answer that question is that just like we've been measuring blood pressure for like 50 years, we've only just recently, we used to say that you could be 130 over 90 was okay, you know, and now we said actually it's like 120 over 80, that's it, that's the cutoff. If you're above that, you have high blood pressure. That's because it's taken us 50 years and literally millions of measurements to recognize that actually, if you're above that number, your risks are higher. So we've been constantly refining it. With the MPI, it's a relatively new machine. We don't have the data that connects the scores people have with their lifelong trajectory, whether they get AMD or not. We may never get that. I mean, I'm hoping we're going to one day, but maybe not in my lifetime because it's a really long study. So it's going to take time to get there. So what we've done is we've looked at the population. So we've done many studies with the MPI. We've looked at the population. We've looked at what the mean is, and we've gone a bit below the mean and said, okay, well, we know that about 30% of people will have AMD by the time they're 65. And there's a good chance that that's very closely linked with the macular pigment levels. So that's that bottom 30%. So we want to be telling those people to do more. People in the middle, good advice. People at the top, just sort of say, look, you're doing great. These are the things you should be doing more of. Keep doing them. That's fantastic. But there is no set number. We just sort of say 4 or less stronger advice. Yeah, great question. And I'm sorry I don't have a better answer. In 100 years I'll have a better answer, I hope. Any other questions about that stuff so far? So I would typically now set the machine up and we'd have a play with it. But I think what we might do is carry on just a bit longer since some of you are still eating and we're kind of relaxed and we're already here. We'll go to the